Hi, I'm Plami, and in this video, I'm gonna be doing another vlog. In this one, as you can see by the title, I'm gonna be talking to you about my experience with getting my driver's license in my home country, Bulgaria. And yeah, it's a whole ass story that I need to tell you, so you better prepare yourself for this long ass explanation. So, first of all, I guess I should talk to you about how I didn't really have too much of an interest getting a driver's license going into this, because when I was a kid, uh, my granddad used to drive uh, a car all the time. He would drive me everywhere, and I would even end up driving uh, the car as well. Like, I was sitting in his lap and controlling the steering wheel, and that was all in the countryside, because I live in the countryside, by the way. Um, uh, and he would allow me to control the steering wheel and drive, and it was really fun. So that was kind of what my experience and interest in driving cars was as a kid. It was really fun, and I really enjoyed it, to the point that when I first got a computer in like 2007 or 2008, I would constantly play like GTA San Andreas and Vice City, because it was the only games that I had that were based heavily around driving, and I always loved playing those games because it was so fun to drive, you know. So after a few years, my granddad broke his car. The car broke for some reason, so I wasn't really able to be driving it anywhere. So my whole attention and interest in driving cars kind of went into GTA San Andreas, really. So for the longest time, that's where I got my feel, for a lack of a better term, for driving a car. But in like my early to mid teenage years, I kind of thought to myself, why the hell would I even need a car? Because like, with the plan that I had for my life, I either wouldn't really need a car, or it would be a pain in my ass if I have it, you know? Because for the longest time, I actually also planned to leave the country and move to some Western European country. That is still possible at some point in the future, but not right now, really. But that was my plan, and I felt like having a car and dealing with all that bureaucracy, and having to learn all the bureaucracy in relation to if I want to drive a car in a Western European country would be too much of a pain in my ass to know and deal with. So I didn't want to get a car because of that. And on the other side of things as well, just really didn't see a reason why I would need a car, because I didn't really plan my life in a way where I would need a car. Like, if I had to travel to a big city, there's a train that works like there's like a train every hour or so. If I want to travel to other big cities near my town, so I didn't really need a car for anything, because I also was like planning to have some kind of a job which I could work from home, or that I didn't really need to travel that much. So again, I don't really feel a need to have a car, and I still kind of don't. But for the longest time, that's why I didn't want to get a car. And also, because for the longest time, my dad has been nagging me to get a driver's license, because he really wants me to get one for some reason. And because I don't really like a lot of my dad's opinions, I tended to go against everything he wanted, so I didn't want to get a driver's license because of that. The last time that I kind of had an interest in getting a driver's license was in like 2017, because back then my dad had bought some kind of like an old car that was taken off the road, like the numbers were taken off of it. And that my dad had bought it because he wanted to drive it in the mountain, because we have a little house ish in the mountain, and it's, from what I understand, not illegal to drive like a car like that in the mountain. Like, nobody's gonna tell you anything as long as you don't take it on the roads or whatever. I don't know if it's an actual law or it's an unspoken rule, but that's what it is. And I ended up driving that car and broke it in like 2 days. It was because back then I didn't really know anything about driving. I only knew that you have to switch gears and you have to press the pedals, and that was pretty much the extension of my knowledge. And I was fearful for about switching gears, so I literally just drove on first. And I think from what I understand, that's why the car broke down. So after that, I kind of felt guilty about that, even though I didn't really get in trouble or anything. My parents were very understanding. But that kind of soured my interest in getting a driver's license. So for the last like 4 years, I didn't really want to get a driver's license. But earlier this year, and even from last year, I was kind of like, oh, I'm tired about my dad constantly nagging me about getting a driver's license. Let's just get one and get it over with. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go and get a driver's license. So earlier this year, I think it was in like February or March, I got myself into a course for learning how to drive, and today I passed. And honestly, at first, when I first started it, it was daunting. Like, I felt like I was never going to be done with it because it was going to be such a long time until I was done. And I hate having to go through such a long experience to get something like that. Like, I hated school, for example, especially in the last few years of my of school in like 10, 11, and 12th grade. Even since like 9th grade, I hated school and barely went, honestly. So I wasn't really that much into going through that course, but obviously I had no choice, so I went. I wasn't worried about the theory test part of it, in which you have to answer a test of like 45 questions, with each question either giving you 1, 2, or 3 points, which means that you could possibly get 97 points at most, and at the very least, to pass you needed to have 87. I personally passed with 94, but again, I was never really worried about passing that. I've always been good at soaking all the information that I could possibly need for a test, passing the test, and after that, either forgetting it or just not really remembering it that much. Like, it's not like I've learned it, I've just memorized it. I've been good at memorizing stuff for tests, always. So I was never worried about that part of it. I was worried about the driving part of it because I'm not really a confident person. I don't trust myself. I don't like taking responsibility, like especially responsibility that I feel like I could have not taken. Like, I'm completely fine with just walking or riding a bike wherever I need to go. I don't really need this car. It's my parents that wanted me to get the driver license. So I didn't really want to take this responsibility. So I was worried that I was going to be able to handle even driving on roads and moving, switching gears and everything. And admittedly, when I first drove for the first time, when we were driving outside of the city for the, I think it was like the first 7 days out of the 15 or 16-day course, I was completely scared shitless when we were driving on the highway, because I was tired. Admittedly, I was tired because I hadn't slept the previous night, because sometimes I just don't do that because I don't feel like sleeping. But I was super tired in the morning. But even then, I was completely scared because I was completely focused on just the car not moving left and right, just driving on the road. I wasn't paying attention to anything else. I wasn't paying attention to cars around me or anything. I was just paying attention for the car to keep going forward and not left and right. But after a while, as we kept driving outside of this the city, it started to get better. But if I gotta be honest, it literally wasn't until the last week, like the previous week, like Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday, it wasn't until then that I actually felt kind of slightly confident about my driving skills, because I was completely worried. Even when we started driving inside of the cities, it was super scary because I found that I'm not really good at seeing everything around me. I'm not really good at completely gathering all the information that I have in front of my eyes. Like, uh, before I started the driving course, the thing that I was worried about when it came to driving was whether I was going to be able to switch gears. But actually, that is super easy, barely an inconvenience. The thing that actually ended up being super hard was being able to notice everything and soak all the information into your head, like seeing whether there are people coming towards the the what's the what was the word for it? Whether in the crossings, I don't know what's the word for it for English in English. I forgot it. Like whether there are people wanting to cross the road, or I wasn't able to really notice all the signs and everything, or whether there are cars around me and everything. That ended up being the scariest thing when we started to drive in the city, but it slowly started to get better. But it genuinely wasn't until last week that I was like, okay, I'm actually doing it, you know? I'm actually paying attention, looking at the mirrors, keeping an eye on everything and my surroundings. But even then, I really wasn't confident going into this morning. Because I just didn't really know what to expect from the person that was testing me. I didn't know how strict he was going to be, how many mistakes I could make, what kind of mistakes were allowed. I just didn't know what to expect in terms of strictness, because I mean, you know how it is in Eastern European countries. Not everything is exactly by the book. There wasn't anything like having to pay money or bribe or whatever. But I was just scared that and just didn't know how strict I should expect them to be, because I'm sure in a Western country, or in like Western Europe, in like the UK, or I don't know, freaking Germany, it's probably so much stricter than what I had to go through here. But I just didn't know what to expect, and I expected the worst. But I actually passed fairly easy. Like, we didn't even really end up driving inside the city. We kind of drove out of a certain neighborhood onto kind of like a main road, under a highway, into a city again, into a bit of a quicker mainish road, just turned around on the main road, returned, crossed one a crossing, and I had to do a couple of parking maneuvers, and that was it. And I was surprised, because it's supposed to be like 25 minutes or whatever. At least that's something that is the same as in the West. But it felt like it passed by way too quick. I'm not sure whether it was genuinely went for 25 minutes or whatever, but it felt so much quicker. And I honestly did it much better than I did when I was driving with my driving instructor, because whenever I was driving with my driving instructor, I feel like maybe just subconsciously I would always rely on him telling me what to do, and him pressing the pedals and everything. So I wasn't really trying to even be aware of my surroundings and knowing what I have to deal with whenever I have to maneuver in some way. But today, when I was doing the driving test, obviously I couldn't rely on the person that was testing me, because they were testing me. So I had to look all the time and everything. And I honestly think I did pretty good. There were a couple of dumb moments where I was like, oh my god, I fucking failed. Like, in one of the parking maneuvers, which was like going backwards and having to turn to the right. When I was doing that, I didn't measure the distance properly, so I was going to get way too close to the car on my left. But instead, what I did when I noticed that is that I pulled the car forward, straightened it up a little bit, and then pulled it backwards. And it was a little stressful during that moment, because it was not how my instructor told me. It was completely relying on my own skills. So I think that maybe sweetened the testing person's opinion of my driving, because I managed to do that without anybody telling me what to do, which means I'm actually not that bad under pressure, because honestly, I'm not that good of a person under pressure. That's one of the reasons why I didn't want to get a driver's license, because I don't want to deal with situations in which I have to make very, very important decisions. But I did that. I pulled back, and apparently there I made a little bit of a mistake, because when I was pulling out of the parking space, there was a truck coming on my left, and I saw it coming on my left, but because there was a woman in front of me that was going to the left, but it was moving slowly, and I didn't know whether she was going to stop or not, and I was like, and I saw the truck coming on my left, I was like, okay, let's just pull out, let's not wait for that woman to move. So we pulled out and we left, and during one of the drivings on the main road, when we were supposed to cross pretty complicated crossroad with cars coming forward from my left and everything, before we got to that crossing, on one of the main roads there is a dirt road that connects to it, but because it's a dirt road, and because sometimes it obviously rains, a lot of dirt had piled up on the right side of the main road's lane, like the rightmost lane. So you couldn't really drive on the right side in the right lane, so you had to move to the left with like a blinker. But at the same time, as we were getting close to that dirt thing that had accumulated, behind me on my left, I saw that there was a truck, and I saw that there was another car as well. So I couldn't really move to the left because they were going to pass me. So I waited for the truck to pass, then I turned on my blinker and moved to the left, and the car behind me that was also going to pass me ended up moving into the opposite side to pass me. So I think that's technically wrong, but I don't know if that's my mistake or his mistake, because I didn't allow him to pass me. But if I didn't allow him to pass me, I wouldn't have been able to move. So maybe it would have been a better decision for me to slow down, but hey, it worked out. I passed it, you know? And that was pretty much the biggest mistake you could say that I did. Because parallel parking was actually super easy, barely an inconvenience. And it's actually much easier than the perpendicular parking, I think that's the word for it. Which is weird, because I find that a lot of people have the opposite, where parallel parking is hard, but perpendicular one it's not. But for me, I had to do 1 parallel parking and 2 perpendicular ones, and I didn't really manage to finish both, neither of my perpendicular ones. Like, I already told you about the first one, in which I didn't manage to turn it properly, so I had to pull forward and then pull back again. And the second one was how we ended the I had to do perpendicular, not parallel parking. I had to do parallel parking and then turn around and go back the way I came. But when I do that, from my left there was a truck coming at high speed, so I didn't see it until the last moment. So there was a danger that I could have possibly gotten hit by it, but I didn't. I pressed the what was the brakes? I pressed the brakes, so it was fine. But I was worried that would have been a mistake, because I wasn't paying attention on my left. I was paying attention on not hitting the car in front of me, because there was a parked car in front of me. But yeah, I was super stressed before it, but it actually ended up being so much easier than what I thought it was going to be. Like, we didn't, as I said, we didn't really end up driving through the city, through the center of the city, because that's where I was driving through for most of the hours that I spent with my driving instructor, and that's not where we went at all, because there was quite a few places where I was worried that I would get stuck because they were problematic when I was driving with my driving instructor, but we never even went there, so that kind of feels a little bit like a waste. But I guess that knowledge would be useful whenever I have to drive for some reason in that city. Although for now, my plan whenever I have to travel to big cities is just park the car, at least for relatively smaller cities like the city in which I was I was doing the driving course, which is like a 17,000 people big city of a city. I can just park the car at some parking and just do everything by walking because there's the infrastructure for that, you know. So I don't really plan on driving inside of cities that much. Obviously, I'm gonna drive in my hometown, but that's easy. That's not scary at all. So yeah, now I just have to go and get my driver's license in like 2 weeks from now, and then I'm gonna be officially a driver. But now I guess it's time to show you my car, because I think I did say that I was going to do that, but yeah. So my car, if I didn't mention it already, is a MK3 Volkswagen Golf. I'm not sure how to pronounce these names in English. I've never read them in English. I don't know how. So I'm kind of speaking a little bit in my country's accent. But yeah, it's a decently nice car. It's from like 1996, I think. So it's an oldish car, but hey, I'm okay with it. Like, I've never been super picky when it came to cars, so I didn't really care what it was going to be. I just didn't want it to be like a stereotypical Eastern European car, aka something like a Moskvich. I think that's the name for a car, like it's a Russian car, or Lada, or some other car like that. That's the only thing that I wanted it not to be. So I'm actually pretty okay with this Golf, especially knowing now that it's diesel and that it's so much easier to drive. Because with this car, I don't even really have to press the pedal for the gas. Well, it's not the gas pedal technically, but that's what I call it. Because that's what it's called in my country, in my language, regardless of whether it's a diesel car or a gas car or a gasoline car. And it's super easy to drive, but the car that I was driving during the driving practice course was with gasoline, so that was much harder to drive, because in those cars you are supposed to actually use the gas pedal and the clutch much more than in a diesel car. And also diesel cars are much more accepting of improper use of the clutch, while gasoline cars really are not. So this car for me is so much better, and honestly I've really grown to fond of this car quite a lot. And going forward, I'm probably just gonna go get Golfs because it's such a useful car, you know. But yeah, I guess now it's time to show you more of the cars. So transition. Okay, so this is my car. It's not the best looking on the outside, but some things are gonna be fixed. Like, for example, it's gonna get fixed eventually, and the rest is just more about washing than anything. There is some rust there, but I don't really care about that. So yeah, I'm trying not to show you my number because I don't know if I would be able to hide it during editing. But yeah, it's a nice little car, you know. Oh, so you know what? Screw it. I'm gonna fix it during editing. I'm gonna hide it in some way, shape, or form. So yeah, I'm pretty okay with this car. It's nice. For a first car, it's not at all bad, you know. I'm pretty okay with it. The only thing that is kind of new and nice looking is the roof on the inside. But I don't really care. As I said, it's my first car. It will do. It will do. And I'm pretty satisfied with it. So yeah, I guess I should show you a little bit of the interior as well. I don't know how much you can see actually. But yeah, I'm probably gonna have to buy a new radio because this one, I mean, it does the job, but I kind of just want a new one so I know exactly how to use it. Because right now I don't really know how to turn on the actual radio because I don't have the the instructions for it, like the little book that probably comes with it, so I don't really know how to use it. But I've managed to learn how to use it with my phone, so that's nice. And yeah, that's the back of it. It's a nice little car, you know. It's nothing special, but it's my car, and I'm pretty okay with it. So yeah, that was my experience with getting a driver's license. I didn't hate it as much as I thought I was going to, but I wouldn't want to go through it again, you know. So I'm glad that you don't have to renew your license every few years or so, because that would be hell, honestly. I in that case, I would have definitely not gotten a driver's license. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, leave a like and subscribe. Also, check out the description to my Twitter if you want to follow me there, and to my Wattpad where I post my stories, because in addition to doing all these videos to my channel, I'm also a writer. And if you haven't enjoyed my stories, or you simply enjoy my videos, you can head over to Patreon where you can pledge your support and help keep the channel going, help support me so I can keep writing stories you enjoy. But if you don't want to do it, that's completely fine. You can still help me out in other ways, like liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and especially sharing this video with somebody who you think might enjoy it. And I think it's pretty much it for this video, so hopefully I'm gonna see you in the next one. Bye!